whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering the criminal justice system in Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and the state. And today we will talk about the state. I'm your host, Jamie Duffy, a locally based journalist, and to my left is our co-host, Michael McAlexander. He is the Allen County Prosecutor, and I want to remind listeners and viewers out there that Fort Wayne is in Allen County, and it is the second largest city in the state. Today we're going to talk about the enforcement of the new Senate Bill 285, which has informally been called the Anti-Street Camping Act, or often referred to as the Homeless Bill. Just passed. It was sponsored by Indianapolis Republican State Senator Cindy Carrasco. Bill passed the Senate on February 26 and was signed into law by Indiana Governor Mike Braun on March 5th, which was just last week. But first we need to get to the courts. So Mike, what have we got this week?
We have a child molesting case going. It's in its second day today. Expect hopefully it'll be wrapped up tomorrow. It's kind of a delayed reporting case. So it's...
dated back like 15 years.
Yeah.
So that should be I just hopped into it yesterday, but I didn't stay. So I hope to get back there tomorrow.
And that just gets into one of the things that always comes up in those kind of cases is, why did the victim wait so long? Mm. And that's one of the things that we have to do with the jury to frequently on those kind of cases, we'll bring in an expert to discuss why somebody does delayed or what triggers them later to decide to come forward.
So there's no statute of limitations when you can bring molesting charges?
Yes, there is. Generally, it's when the victim turns 31.
She's not 31 because she was 12 when it started. I've already read the probable cause.
So yeah, those are very tough cases for the victim, tough cases I know they went through on the jury selection. People have very strong emotions about those. They lost a lot of people to cause strikes because I think there's frequently times when people believe kids and they acknowledge they can't be fair. Mm-hmm. They think it's so horrific. So they went through like 5 different panels to get a jury.
I was going to say, I was there. I don't think they got a jury selected until 2 in the afternoon, yeah. 1:30 or 2, mm-hmm. which is really like, that's an all-day affair. And I was wondering, are they going to actually start with openings? But they probably did. Last Friday, Christopher Recht, 21 now, was convicted on all 4 counts in the homicide of Avion Parker, who was 19 when he was killed in September of 2023. His 17-year-old brother was wounded with a leg injury, and Christopher will be sentenced on May 15. On the stand, his brother said that the bullet went straight through his leg, which when I heard that, I was like, I can't imagine the pain that it would go straight through your leg. And he was just sitting there testifying. He was really pretty reluctant. He wasn't speaking in a loud voice. Yeah, this is what happened to me. Didn't really want to be there. But what also came to light was the fact that when they took him to the hospital, and I don't even think he wanted to go to the hospital at first, the hospital went into lockdown because they took him to Lutheran. Security told him that there were people out there who had come to get him. So this was called a gang-related murder trial. There was the charge, criminal gang activity, and to me, this is a gang activity. I've seen emotions at these trials, but this one was marked by the ongoing feud between the BSG and the BMG, which are two local gangs or cliques, as law enforcement sometimes calls them. There were reports of witnesses being threatened outside the courtroom, witnesses on the stand who couldn't remember a thing. And I saw that several times on the stand. And one guy who came into the courtroom nervously yet trying to appear nonchalant, tossing a small yellow lighter up in the air, only the judge couldn't see him. He cut it short right before he rounded the bend. And I said to Mike that was some kind of meaning to the people in the gallery that and when he got on the stand, he was one of those who couldn't remember anything. I didn't put his name in because I feel like he feels threatened. And, you know, I don't want to bring any harm to anybody, but I can see what prosecutors go through. He was convicted, as I said. You can read my coverage on www.theprobablecause.com or on our Facebook page, The Probable Cause. And thank you to Judge Stephen Godfrey for being flexible with me when security was a big concern. I mean, you've got to weigh the press versus security concerns, and he was super nice about it. So thank you. Now, on to this bill.
I wanted to give one little shout out on that case. Tom Shaley was supposed to kind of be the second chair on that case with Tessa Helge. And he had a family emergency over the weekend and couldn't go through with the trial. And Rebecca Grove jumped in, having not even read the case, and sat second chair.
Yeah, she did a great job. Actually, she got up and did some questioning, and I watched her. And then, of course, the defense attorneys were right on there, too. It was David Feltz and David
Jolly.
I always want to say Jolie. Of course. Now, on to this bill, which I said was SB285. It doesn't have a proper name, so that's why I said it's known as the anti-street camping. You know, as if, you know, we would set up street camping in our cities. It got a lot of attention. I say this because Indiana has a lot of challenges, and I'm going to go through these challenges, and I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm going to write the challenges. There are dirty rivers, high infant mortality, a spiraling Department of Child Services, lack of public transportation, which we had a whole show on that, high poverty rates, food insecurity, low teacher pay, bad roads, and it looks like with another new bill that got signed into law, a defanged Department of Environmental Management when it was already understaffed. So my question, not necessarily Mike's, is do we really need this bill? State legislature apparently thought so by a vote of 28 yeas, all Republican, to 22 nays, which was bipartisan. That was Democrats and some Republicans did not think it was necessary. Here is how the state senators in this area voted. Liz Brown, Justin Bush, Tyler Johnson, and Sue Glick voted for it. Travis Holdman from Ossian voted no, breaking with the party line. Also, Mike Boacek, who I don't know what area he's from, but he was prominent.
Northwest
in the redistricting situation that was brought up a couple months ago. Now, according to the Indiana Capitol Chronicle, which is always an excellent source for state legislative news, Carrasco says this bill, quote, will save lives, unquote, and the bill, quote, will make an impact, unquote. This bill prohibits anyone from camping, sleeping, or sheltering on public land owned by the state or a municipality, which is, of course, where most folks probably sleep if they are homeless. I mean, I suppose they could pitch a tent in a farmer's field or private woods, but it seems as though they tend to congregate in cities where they can get food and services, as they call it. If you are belligerent about your right to sleep or camp on public land, you could be in for a Class C misdemeanor, and that could mean up to 60 days in jail and a fine of $500. Good luck wrenching $500 from a homeless person, as if their lives aren't bad already, right? I mean, there's a majority of Americans, maybe about 40%, who don't even have $400 set aside for an emergency. And this is going to be $500 for street camping. So we'll see. But this bill goes further than criminalizing street camping, and none of us really want people camping in our streets, in our cities. I mean, Fort Wayne has a number of homeless people. And I must say, I see them walking around a lot. I can't say that I've ever seen anybody street camping, but it sets up law enforcement and a local municipality for trouble if they are caught not following the rules. Here's key intentions according to AI, all right? They sort of sum up what the whole thing is. It's forcing individuals into shelters or mental health services via law enforcement, requiring state-level accountability, which means that they have to report back to the state. The Indiana State Police and the local authorities have to report back to the state, and preventing local sanctuary policies. So I went online to see, gee, do we have any sanctuary cities in Indiana? And actually we don't as of 2011 because they were banned from the state. There are no political jurisdictions where these policies are enacted. However, I think that some people in the state think that they go along with the sanctuary policies anyway. Mike, do you think that?
Well, I believe the Attorney General has brought some actions. I don't know if it was against Monroe County or the city of Bloomington. I think there may also be some litigation in Northwest Indiana, some of the towns.
Would that be like Hammond and Gary?
Lake County, yeah, up there. That I don't know that Indiana or any of the cities in Indiana are quite at the same level as some of the major cities throughout the country. But I know Attorney General Rokita has brought some litigation against them.
Right, he's very suspicious of the blue towns in Indiana. I was listening to a Senate hearing of all things last night on my phone, and they're saying that when there is a sanctuary city, it doesn't mean that you can break the law and get away with it. It just means
Arguably,
that you're protected. So if you do something super bad and you're an immigrant, no, you're not going to be protected.
I think it's generally considered they aren't going to cooperate with immigration authorities.
Right, that's a good way to put it, and that is so important right now because ICE is at the top of the news nearly every day. Another key intention is to mandate shelter and services. Law enforcement is required to offer, and in some cases, facilitate transportation to a service provider or shelter before making an arrest. So now they have to facilitate transportation. If they find somebody camping out, and I'm not sure how that can work because I'm not sure you can throw them into a police vehicle.
Well, this is where I think I don't think anybody wants people using drugs, sleeping on the sidewalk. I mean, we see those pictures from Los Angeles or San Francisco and stories of needles being left and human waste out on the streets.
Right.
And we certainly don't want to have that. On the other hand, we're all very aware of the mental health crisis. Locally, we have a jail that we're under a federal court order to keep the population reduced. Now, there are several safeguards in that bill before somebody gets arrested.
Right, we're going to get to that actually.
Which I think is going to make it difficult for law enforcement to be able to turn on a dime and make a call. I mean, if somebody's in a fist fight, the officer can pretty much say, okay, you're committing a battery, let's go. This has various safeguards, I think, including one that there has to be a facility available. Well, then there's a little bit of, okay, who's got a facility with beds available right now that doesn't have barriers to it? I mean, we have the rescue mission, but they have various requirements that include not being intoxicated or high when you come into their place. The city, I believe, has talked about creating a low barrier shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So are they going to have constant communication? An officer finds somebody sleeping at Headwaters Park. they have to call dispatch and say, what's the head count at the rescue mission?
It actually sounds like it.
So
there's reporting that's required. You have to prove to the state that you have reduced homelessness. You have to give numbers for how many people that you have that you've arrested under this act. So it's just going to, in my opinion, add to the red tape, as if the officers don't have enough to do out there already.
Right.
It also updates the definition of gravely disabled to include individuals in dangerous weather conditions who refuse shelter, allowing for involuntary mental health detention in some cases. Now, we just had Judge Andrew Williams on, and he can tell you what you have to go through to have involuntary mental health detention. So here's another burden laid on the cops and the shelters and maybe a very difficult homeless person that you just can't force people to do that. We had an instance, if you guys remember, like 2 years ago when there was a woman who froze in the woods just north of DuPont Kroger. I walk through those woods all the time. I had no idea people were living in those woods. And I found out, due to my reporting at Kroger, that everybody had tried to help this woman and that she had family. There was some podcaster that said, oh, she had no family. You know, it built up this great narrative and how she was all alone. That wasn't the case at all. The Kroger employees actually pooled together, bought her clothes, bought her food, but she insisted on a different lifestyle, which included going into Kroger and taking whatever she wanted and eating it, you know. So, I mean, she refused it. So she could have been one of these people that the police on a freezing cold night are trying to talk into going to a shelter.
Well, and we've had a couple of incidents with people using, I think, the public bathroom at Promenade Park. We had a homicide there.
We sure did.
Several years ago, the property where Pepsi was across the river, somebody had crawled into one of their semi-trailers that wasn't being used. It has a little compartment that they were living out of, and we ended up with a homicide there. I mean,
oh, we did?
Mm-hmm. And we've even...
I didn't know that.
Several years ago, I remember my wife and I were in Headwaters Park West, and this was before Promenade Park, and we found like 10 guys that had bed gear and stuff on one of the little pagoda type things in the park. So I'm sure they had been sleeping there. We've also had homeless camps that the police have broken up at times.
And that's very controversial in Fort Wayne, when they break up the camps and they throw their belongings away.
But it's also a public health hazard.
It is.
And whether that would fit under this bill. But then there's some safeguards, like if they move 300 feet, they're okay.
Well, this is what that's another thing. So we get to accountability for services. The Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority is required to set eligibility criteria for federal funding, requiring providers to report on their effectiveness in reducing homelessness. It prohibits local governments from enacting policies that prevent or discourage the enforcement of these camping bans. So in other words, the local, here we are, states' rights, local rights, and all of this, but the state is going to come in and check their record keeping, apparently. And then the local authority, as the bill puts it, has to match the federal Continuum of Care program. That's actually a federal program right in this bill. So already we're bringing in the federal government so that we can get that money. And I do want to point out that the Indiana Capitol Chronicle has reported that Indiana is the third most dependent on federal funds in the entire nation. And so they can't do any of this without federal money. And I'm sure grants for these shelters, there's federal grants to run these places. If you get federal funds, then you have to show that you've addressed unsheltered homelessness and that you have in fact reduced homelessness. I know I've said this before. The political jurisdiction, as it states, which I think is a hilarious way of saying just city, political jurisdiction, We'll keep track of the reduction of homelessness. You can see how this is going to be red tape. And the Indiana State Police will then have to provide to the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority the information that they receive from the local municipalities. See, so now you've dragged in the Indiana State Police, and they do have statistics. So our local law enforcement has weighed in on this, and it was Jonathan Cutler of the FWPD Fort Wayne Police Department and Ken Litzenberg from PIO for the Allen County Sheriff's Department. They both said the law doesn't take effect until July 1st, so it's a bit difficult to address how the law will affect our political jurisdiction right now. I like to say that, political jurisdiction. Ken Litzenberg summed it up this way. He said he doesn't know what kind of effect it's going to have on the Sheriff's Department or the Allen County jail population. But I can tell you they enacted this in Albuquerque several years ago, and ProPublica published a story on that I found online. And their numbers at the jail jumped way up because of the criminalization.
Well, and that's the the concern that I know I have, and I think the sheriff has on this, that we are in a, as I said, the federal lawsuit that limits our jail population, or we're under the threat of a mandate. And so if we add even 50 more, we will be well above what our top limit is.
Although I think that federal judge Damian Arlecki would understand that, since we have that brand new jail going up. And it should be ready by the end of next year.
Well, the problem with this population, while this starts as a C misdemeanor, you also have the crime of trespass, which a second offense of trespass can be a felony.
Well, probably this one too.
I'm not sure if it has the escalation in it or not.
Well, is criminal trespass, is that a misdemeanor A?
Yeah.
Okay.
What they argued, I think, in passing this bill was this would benefit the homeless by identifying them, and the primary purpose would be to get them help. But I also know, depending on the jurisdiction, the judge, the prosecutor, do you take this as arrest your way out of the problem? Our problem, just looking ahead, when I look at our book-in sheets, when I see somebody with a trespass charge, I immediately think, I'm dealing with a homeless person. I've probably got mental health issues. And I've got really no place to help these people.
That's right.
So it would make more sense if we had the facilities to put them in besides the jail. Mm-hmm. But as so often happens, as the sheriff would be quick to tell you and has told you, mm-hmm. When you can't do anything else, they get arrested and they end up in his jail.
And they're in with people who murder each other.
Well, and along with, as of yesterday, I think it was 93 or 94 people awaiting transport to the Department of Corrections.
And the Department of Corrections is in shambles too.
So it just seems like we're going to add to our problems now. And we don't always seem to be speaking with a coherent, focused view. Because I know we've got parts of the city that I think has a homelessness coordinator now.
Yes.
And
yes.
They certainly are not advocating arresting all these people. But we have police officers that are looking at this, and they've been tasked to clean this up, make our parks safe, make our public spaces safe. Well, how do you do that? You get rid of the crazy people that confront and intimidate people out on the street.
You only get rid of them for so long, right?
Right. What do you do with them? Well, you end up putting them in jail. Mm-hmm. If you put them in jail and you process them through the courts, and okay, so we don't want to jail them, so we put them on probation. They go on probation, they miss appointments, they do drugs, they do other things. They violate the terms of their probation. Well, what's their consequence for doing that? Putting them in jail.
And then, of course, there's a failure to appear that you're going to throw in there,
yep.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I mean, you go down this path, and when they talk about sometimes the school to prison pipeline, this one is much easier to identify and much more probable that it will happen than some of those other scenarios.
And sometimes when I see criminal trespass, I think about homeless, but I also think, I found out from a city official yesterday that no, they don't bus homeless people in here, that they are mostly people from this county, right? And I just think it's like they had a home, but because of all their problems, they're not welcome there anymore. And the families had it up to here. And so that's when the criminal trespass comes into.
I mean, when
It's just a different scenario.
I think I've said this before, but when we had adult protective services, everybody thinks we're only dealing with the elderly.
Right.
But we dealt with a lot of mental illness, young people in their 20s or 30s that had burnt their bridges with their families.
Right.
Either through stealing from them, drug abuse,
Violence.
other behavior like that. And they were just done.
Yeah.
And they'd try to take them to like the ER and drop them off. And this came up in a meeting over lunch today that folks from one of our local shelters had talked about, that while they take in homeless, there's criteria for you to come in. It's not a drop-off center. And went through this, that our advice on APS used to be, okay, you got this person here. Are they eligible medically to be admitted to a hospital or a medical facility? If not, do they have mental health issues that make them eligible to be committed through the process that Judge Williams talked about?
Which doesn't happen in an hour.
No. And lastly, have they committed a crime that they could be arrested for?
Well, criminal trespass is a crime.
Right.
Of sorts.
So if you don't have one of those three, the police really have no power to just yank somebody off the street and do what with them?
Just because there was a complaint that individual's there and they don't want them there. Yeah.
So that is a really big problem. And where do we send them? And that's part of the problem with this bill. It presupposes that we have these shelters that we could take them to.
Well, we have shelters, but I'm going to get down to that too, because I consulted Sally Becker-Segerson, who has Street Reach for the Homeless, and she keeps tabs on all of these shelters, you know, and you can see right here, there's a program called Everyone Home, and it lists everything. Of course, you got your Rescue Mission, Just Neighbors, St. Joseph Mission, YWCA Northeast Indiana. That's saying that, oh, maybe there is a space there, but not necessarily. Obviously, there might not be, because we still have, you can tell who the homeless are in Fort Wayne. And they never bothered me leaving late at night from the Journal-Gazette. I've walked this town. And I mean, of course, I noticed them. But here's what Ken Litzenberg said. The legislation dealing with the long-term camping, he calls it long-term, on public property includes several steps before an arrest would occur. The process begins with a warning and providing the individual with information about available shelter or other resources. Now, you're dealing with a homeless person, so hey, you know, you might consider, you know what I mean? That to me is, but yeah, that's what the bill says, all right? The individual is then given 48 hours to relocate the area, which is what you were talking about. Oh, they're going to go 400 yards away, and then they won't be exactly in that area. Only if the person remains in violation after those steps could an arrest occur. Under the statute, and this is really important, the offense would be a Class C misdemeanor, which we already said, and individuals would be arrested under that charge, and they would generally be eligible for an own recognizance bond. They would be released on their own recognizance shortly after processing. So what he's saying is they're going to get processed at the jail and they're going to be right back out in the street.
Pretty much. And you've heard the sheriff say this, I believe. One of his great concerns is, where do people go where are they going to sleep that night after he releases them from the jail? And
Right back where they were.
right back where they were. And the alternative is that they stay in jail, because if we can't verify identity,
Oh, yeah, never even thought of that.
we may not be able to release them. But it's also the officer, just by going through all that criteria, there is a lot of paperwork that you've got to check off this box, this box, this box, to ensure that they qualify when they create their probable cause affidavit. I'd venture to say it may take much longer to do that paperwork than it will be to process that person out of the jail.
Absolutely. And there you go. Once again, that has to be reported to the state, has to be reported to the Indiana State Police. They have to keep track of all of this. So now you're just adding red tape on top of red tape. But that's my own comment. FWPD's Jonathan Cutler brought up another point, which we kind of touched upon. The primary challenge is determining where individuals can go once they are required to move. If arrests are made under this law, I'm not sure how effective they will be. Many of the people affected are already indigent, so fines will likely be waived, and our jail is already at capacity. So he continues to say in his email, while the legislation provides an additional tool we can use when absolutely necessary, I'm not convinced it will address the underlying issue.
I would agree.
Which is what you were talking at lunch with some of our local officials. So right now, according to homeless advocates, this is a situation in Fort Wayne, which Mike and I have just discussed. Maybe Ms. Carrasco and the state can provide money to house the homeless. Because whenever we need money for community corrections, or it used to be adult protective services, or for the homeless, they will mandate this stuff and then no funding. Or let's see if you can get it from the feds, which the feds have chopped a lot of this money. So here's what Sally Becker Segerson says. She is the voice for Street Reach for the homeless. She's been doing this for years. So I figure that we can call her an expert when it comes to the Fort Wayne homeless. She says that warming centers are slated to end on March 31st. The rescue mission has presented stats, and they are filled with 500 men. 55 at capacity 24/7 at the Salvation Army of Allen County, along with another 47 in emergency shelters, which include Just Neighbors Interfaith Homeless Network and St. Joseph Missions Women's Shelter. Now, Sally's concern centers around the last three. Nearly 100 people, including children, will have no shelter after the 31st if we stick with the original plan. Since homes are not going to drop from the heavens, where are these people going to go? She said, while the new bill does suggest services and information on shelters, our women's shelters are full, each supporting with a waiting list at that time. Okay, services with no bed or opportunity of shelter is merely a highway to homelessness with no off-ramp for needed housing. So infractions are likely to occur in the city with no light at the end of a very dark tunnel. And she says, let's not wait until July 1st, 2026 to come up with a plan. Thoughts on that one, Mike?
Well, this is where you get into limited resources. I think there have been a couple of meetings lately, some other police agencies requesting some police or some meetings about how we deal with this. And I think from that standpoint, as a community, we need to kind of establish what our priorities are. Do we want to try to do this through the arrest power? Do we want to try to do this where we don't have to do that, but we expand our sheltered facilities? But that
just
also
remember,
presupposes...
the state is watching. Go ahead, sorry.
But it presupposes that these folks want to be in a shelter.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of it is due to drug use, some of it's due to mental health issues, or both. Some of it is they don't want to be told what to do by anybody.
That's like this woman named Kathy who lived in the woods just around Kroger DuPont, of all places. That's where she wanted to be. Or if she could find a place where she could sit and, one of the big box stores or something like that would allow, I guess apparently they allow people to spend the night, but they have to be out at a certain time. She didn't want to go to the shelter.
And shelters have rules. They have to.
Right, they do.
And I believe Sally's been big about providing tents for a lot of the homeless.
Right, so if you are going to allow tents, you would have to have a place away from downtown.
And what kind of public health issues do
Exactly.
you have? I know they've talked about the Portland Loo, that they talked about it a year or two ago. And
I think it's supposedly going to happen.
Well, who's lucky enough to get that outside their business store?
Well, the thing is, it's needed. It's needed, especially I used to have to cover all those summer events like down at Headwaters and everything. It is needed because, like, where do you go to use the loo if you're downtown walking around, especially now that you've got Dora? You can walk around with your drink in certain areas. However, you have to have like the old-fashioned restrooms, from way back when. You have to have somebody there manning it. You just do.
I know.
It's another job for somebody, but,
Former prosecutor Walt Helmke told me stories years ago that there used to be on both the north and south ends of the courthouse, before they built at the time, City County building, then the Rousseau Center.
Right.
There were public restrooms underground outside the courthouse area, but they became dens of iniquity. So
for those who don't know what dens of iniquity are, do you want to explain that, Mike?
Let's just say bad behaviors went on kind of in public.
Right. And we already know we had a homicide at the Pavilion, and I'm sure that's locked up at night now.
One would think.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's an event. So there is no place to use the restroom. So if you could make it safe, and you're going to have personnel there. I'm sorry.
But like the not in my backyard response to a lot of housing developments type of thing. As we sit here on the corner of the Landing and Calhoun Street, there's a nice big spot down there right in the middle of the Landing. If they put the loo there, do I want to be looking out my window at that? Do the businesses along here want to have that?
Well, I don't think they're putting the Portland Loo there, but I'm not sure where the Portland Loo is going.
And if you put it where the people are.
Yeah, and we're kind of losing space right in central downtown because we've got all kinds of apartments going up, and maybe if they finally tear down the jail, they'll have a Portland, and something's going to go in there. We know something will go in there once that, and I know I had to write a story at Wayne a couple of times about that. Don't think the real estate developers aren't looking at that land.
Right.
Oh yeah, they're very interested. We were trying to figure out just what it would be worth it.
This whole area is, with homelessness and substance abuse, is so ripe for unintended consequences that the best of intentions to help people could really subdue
Backfire.
a lot of the wonderful work that's been done downtown.
Well, let's hope not, because it really is fun downtown now. I mean, to walk around on a lovely summer night, you've got all kinds of things open, and now Chuck Sirac is bringing a grocery store down. And you can bet he'll make sure it's safe down there if he's going to have a grocery store. So, okay, so now we're on to Why are people homeless? I thought about putting this at the beginning of our discussion, and then I thought, no, let's just talk. We've talked about this bill. Let's just talk about why people are homeless. I consulted a couple different sources on this, and some of them you might not have thought about, and some of them you think obviously, like mental illness and substance abuse, which often go hand in hand. So the National Alliance to End Homeless, which is a thing, says that there are low incomes, a lack of affordable housing, and weak safety nets drive record high homelessness, okay, record. When people cannot afford to pay rent, homelessness increases. America's housing affordability crisis is caused by deeply rooted challenges. There's not enough affordable housing, development, and preservation. Inadequate rental assistance programs, persistently low incomes, and weak safety nets like Social Security that help people pay for housing. I think we're talking about cuts to Social Security, which just means we're going to have more homeless people. So it's like a boomerang, really. I mean, what are you going to invest in, at the front or the back? And then you have the end of federal COVID-19 relief funds, which temporarily expanded assistance programs and household incomes, and discriminatory policies and practices that make it even harder for certain groups to find housing. I would say that a lot of these homeless people, you have to come up with at least a month's rent to rent a place, a house, an apartment, maybe even I'm sure some people actually rent rooms, but you have to show some kind of financial ability to pay that, which they don't have, I
was thinking about that. There was an article about going back in history that the Journal ran a week or two ago about a rooming house fire on the Landing from 1961. And they talked about, I think they called them boarding rooms or something. But if you watch old Westerns, when they had a communal bathroom and bedrooms and stuff, that we housed people fairly cheaply in those days, and somehow we moved away from that. I remember when the YMCA had, in addition to gyms and stuff, they also had rooms. It was kind of a mini hotel.
Well, you know the song YMCA,
Right.
one of Trump's favorite songs. You can go get a room at the YMCA, and actually you could.
But those places were designed kind of for single people, non-families that populated the cities, and
they were good places. For the most part, they were.
Sometimes there were stories that,
yeah.
And some of them were fire traps.
Look, Homeward Angel, I believe, which is an old classic from American literature. I believe there's boarding rooms in there. I mean, you really get a feel for what it was like back in the day. I haven't read it for years, but.
But I guess that raises, now we're talking about people being able to put like an in-law little house on their property, or people taking in, I think you referenced, people renting out a bedroom in their house.
Yeah.
I think our sense of privacy as a society has changed. The idea of bringing in a stranger and renting them a room seems like something out of the Old West.
It seems a little bit dangerous. But I had a friend in France who had a loggia, and she called it a lodger. And what he was a guy who had to travel during the week, for his job, and then he needed a place to stay. And so she made a nice little income from that.
But I think our sense of privacy has changed our attitude. It's kind of like hitchhiking.
Yes.
In the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, my dad right at the end of World War II talked about hitchhiking from Chicago to Fort Wayne, where my mom was, on weekends to see her, and it was very common to pick up hitchhikers. Now, it's like serial killer.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen people waiting for the bus on Lima Road. You know, they just look like ordinary, but maybe probably poor people. And I think, boy, I'd really like to give them a ride, you know? And it's just like, there's just no way, you know?
But that's an interesting shift that as a society we've changed. I mean, I can remember as a teenager, I didn't do it very often, but there were a couple of times of hitchhiking back in the early 70s. I'd be like, if one of my kids wanted to do that, I'd say, hell no.
I know. I would be scared to death if they announced that that's how they were going to, you know, travel across the U.S. Because I know there's so many weirdos. You know. We know all the weirdo stories now, too. So there's something called backpack bed or something like that. They say that this is shocking to me, 1 in 588 people are homeless in America. That's in the millions.
Seems awfully high.
Really does. 1 in 588 people are homeless. Of course, now, how do you define?
So 2 per 1,000. So if we have 400,000, does that give us, what, 80,000 or something? Am I doing my math right?
I think it's usually 1% of your population. I did a story on that once. So we would have 400,000. We have about 4,000 homeless, but they don't. No, but they don't all. Okay, so they don't all fit into the category of street people. Some of these kids, I'll go into this.
Couch surfing. I mean,
yeah, they don't. Well, okay, the murder trial that I covered this past week, I was listening to the detective interview with Detective Aaron Johnson and Liza Anglin and Christopher Recht. One of the first things that he asked Christopher Recht was, well, you know, where's your home? Where do you live? And he said, well, do you mean where I, you know, go to sleep? Or I don't really have a home. And then I had learned some of the backstory of this kid's life, and he actually didn't. And at one point he said, well, I might sleep with my girls. You know, so he didn't actually have an actual address, an actual home. So, and here he is on trial for murder. It says, this one here from this one website, homelessness in America is primarily driven by a severe shortage of affordable housing with high rents and stagnating incomes, leaving many households one financial emergency away from losing their homes. I wanted to talk about stagnating incomes because I know in journalism that's what's happened since the 1980s. And that's when we started having leveraged buyouts and mergers and acquisitions. And then the private equity guys got in there. And then the hedge fund. Well, we know hedge funds are buying up houses, no matter what shape they're in. And then they turn around and sell them. And they are preventing some people from buying homes. You read about it all the time. If you listen to CNBC or you read the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, you find out that this is what's happening to some of our housing stock. Meanwhile, we are trying to catch up with it. They just can't catch up with it fast enough. Key contributing factors to that include widespread poverty in America, unemployment, lack of access to health care. I'm going to repeat that, lack of access to health care, and systemic inequalities. All right? So the shortage of low-cost housing units and rapidly increasing rents are considered the main drivers of homelessness in most American cities. We are definitely a city in Fort Wayne. And then wages have not kept pace with the cost of living, particularly housing costs, leaving many people unable to secure stable housing. Well, they already say that people who are in their 20s and 30s, it used to be you'd be able to buy a home by the time you're in your 30s, or 30, at 30. Now it's more likely to get pushed to 40. So, and that's home ownership. Economic factors like unemployment and underemployment, job loss, reduced hours, stagnant wages are significant causes. We already know from what Judge Williams told us last week when we had him on that Marion County got more desperate when a lot of the industrial factories and like that closed. Well, one of them was AMPAD, and that was Bain Capital that went in, took out the cash, bought the company, and left a lot of people without jobs. Where do they go? If you're working at a fast food place, you're not going to make that same salary that you were. And so there was sort of a gutting of that. Lack of access to health care, high medical bills, and untreated mental illnesses or substance abuse disorders can cause people to lose housing. So I say that a lot of people who do have health care, maybe sometimes when they get to the hospital, they try and negotiate because their health care policy will not cover what they need if they wind up in ER.
I mean, since our health care is generally funded through either Medicaid, Medicare, or through private insurance. And if you have private insurance, that means you have employment.
You do have employment. What I'm saying is, what does that policy actually cover?
Well, I think the general stuff, I mean, the insurance companies have, a lot of those plans are pretty good about basic well-being, annual checkups, that kind of thing. But obviously, it's more problematic if you don't have insurance.
Well, even if you do, let's say you broke your arm, you know, you have to go to the emergency room, and then you have to get x-rays, and you have to, you know, and all that. It's only going to pay a portion of it. Well, if you're one of these people that has a very low paying job, you're going to wind up with a medical bill. And I know that people in this county, attorneys, who make a very good living off medical debt collection.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's a problem out there, which of course, if we had national health insurance, it's not for free, people. It's not for free. You have to pay into it, but at least it takes that anxiety away. Do you know what I mean? Of course, we're not doing it on that, but I just wanted to add that. Here's another reason: domestic violence. Fleeing an abusive relationship is a major, often overlooked cause of homelessness, particularly for women and children. But I maintain if you're a teenager and you're getting abused in your family or you're getting beaten, you're going to leave. Where do you wind up? Have we not all seen that heartbreaking ad for the Covenant House on TV?
No, you don't have a lot of great options if you're 17, 18, 19 with no resources and no skills.
Right. And I mean, maybe grandma isn't around anymore, or, you know, your aunt can't take you in right now, or, you know, it happens so often. Well, we see it happen with this kid, I was talking about. Systemic racism and marginalization. It says that people of color and I can never say this quite right, LGBTQ+, I always have to look at it, are disproportionately represented in the homeless population due to systemic barriers. And I know a lot of the kids who feel like they're gay and they get kicked out of their families. We still don't have, families who accept them, and so they wind up out in the streets. And I'm sure the police could tell us that. And then here's another one. Institutional discharge. And I must say, I completely think about this, but individuals leaving foster care, prisons, or hospitals often lack adequate support systems and find themselves without housing. So, and that's probably one of the saddest of all, the foster care kids who turn 18.
I mean, that's been documented that there are kids that are unadoptable, either through disability or aging out of that system, that you don't see the adoptions after they hit puberty, and a lot of times there are behavioral issues.
Oh, yeah.
Create real barriers.
And I mean, and the help for those kids is very spotty. Like there was one great guy who'd gone through foster care, and he and his partner came up with this thing because they know all the kids leave with these black plastic bags with all their belongings. And so he made sure that every single one of them had a backpack. But, you know, that's only one little political jurisdiction, as they call it. You know, it's not a national policy. So, Also talking about the weakened social safety net, limited government assistance, and a shortage of support services, which we know we have support services here in Fort Wayne. We know we have someone who's dedicated to the homeless population in the city now, which is great. We know this everyone home here. We just know that the shelters are full. And somehow or other, we're going to have to find more for those people. Even the hotels, you can get vouchers. But would you want to stay at some of those hotels?
No.
No. Where, I've been out to a few of them on crime scenes and, there's like, oh my God, the bed bugs are horrible, the cockroaches, family relational breakdowns. This one really broke my heart. Breakdowns in relationships, particularly for youth, often called throwaway teens. I just hate to think of any teenager as a throwaway teen. And yet your office, I'm sure, sees them.
Yep.
Physical disability or chronic illness. High costs associated with health issues can lead to eviction. I suppose we even have people in wheelchairs who are homeless, but I don't know that for sure.
I know we've had some people struck. Lady was killed, I think, on Coliseum Boulevard in a wheelchair.
Was she homeless?
I don't know.
Sometimes we all don't find out about that. And then, of course, I brought up Kathy. So I was just thinking maybe just for fun, we should take a look at...
It's been such an uplifting...
Yeah. Just for fun, we should take a look at Cindy Carrasco, who was the sponsor for this bill. Because I was thinking to myself, why did she propose this bill when we have a lot of other issues in the state that could be solved?
I think her intentions are good. And I know she used to be with the Attorney General's office. She ran for prosecutor in Marion County, I think, in 2018.
2022.
Oh.
I have all that.
Okay.
She said she earned a bachelor's degree in poli-sci from the University of Texas in El Paso. And then she went to the Indiana University Robert H. McKinney School of Law, which is where you went. In 2015, Governor Mike Pence chose Carrasco to become the Inspector General of Indiana, which that sounds like a pretty high-powered job.
It investigates ghost employment, misdeeds by state employees. It's kind of a counterpart to the Attorney General, but focused on state employees doing bad things.
Oh, okay. So in 2022, Ms. Carrasco ran for the office of Marion County Prosecutor against the incumbent Ryan Mears, who is very popular.
With who?
But anyway, I know a lot of people, Ryan Mears, and he did beat her. So on July 10th, 2023, she became the Vice President and General Counsel of the University of Indianapolis. So she's had interesting jobs with the state. And then she became a state senator after Senator Jack Sandlin unexpectedly died in September of 2023. Carrasco defeated John Jacob via a caucus, that would be a Republican caucus, with a vote of 53-5. So she handily won that caucus. Then she was elected for real in November of 2024. Now, this is an aside because, if she's concerned about the homeless, the Indianapolis mayor, who is a Democrat, Joe Hogsett, will be stepping down from that position at the end of 2027. So I'm wondering if she's positioning herself to run as a Republican, and this will be one of the things, hey, look at what I did, for mayor.
Well, I think the consensus was that this whole bill was really targeted for Indianapolis, that they've had issues and they becoming a much greater tourist destination and a sponsor for all sorts of athletic events, that there's been a lot of criticism of deterioration of downtown Indy. They had a shootout with a bunch of kids by the Steak and Shake on Illinois, and
But we had a shootout down here at the landing.
Well, and if we had them,
4th.
and if we had more of stuff like that, but Indianapolis had several years. I think last year they reduced their homicide rate significantly.
They did.
But prior to that, they were well up into the 200s for the last several years. So there was.
They've actually improved their clearance rate. I could look it up. I have it on my computer because I did talk to the PIO at the IMPD, Indianapolis
IMPD.
Metro PD. And I asked him with his clearance rate, which is quite impressive. I said, were you inspired by Fort Wayne at all? Because we have quite a high clearance rate. It could be 100% right now, or 95, you know. And he did not answer that, but he was, I thought it was ever so nice that he called me right back. And I haven't been able to use those statistics yet. So anyway.
But when you look at our highest, I think the highest year we've had with homicides was 49 one year.
Yeah.
No, we've been in the 40s. But and our population is now touching right at 400,000.
They're about 2.5 times bigger than we are.
Right. Well, that homicide rate would then be, if they had our 40 times 2.5, it would be a little over 100. So we're right at 100. So comparatively, we're doing pretty well.
Oh, we're doing very well because, I mean, we haven't hit in the 40s for a while. I mean, I'm not sure where we are right now because I'm not a police reporter anymore, but I know I know that there does seem to be some deterrence, but in Fort Wayne also we have workings between the gang unit and Bison Narcotics and the homicide unit and the chief and all the people who are in charge of the investigations are all on board and they work together. And that, you know, I mean, because if you expect the populace right after it happens, especially in the Southeast side, they don't like the police. That came up in the trial last week. They don't trust the police. Why should I talk to you? Especially when everybody's standing outside and the cops are here. And why would I stand there and confer with you and let everybody see me, you know, confiding in you? Oh yeah, I know who did that. So you got to really give it to Fort Wayne. They really got organized with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
It's paid off. So anyway, I'm just wondering, we'll have to watch and see, you know, what higher aspirations Ms. Carrasco has. The reaction to this bill seems to be a collective eye roll, in my opinion. Fort Wayne has shelters, resources. We have something called Everyone's Home. Cities all over the United States are grappling with this, and they don't want their downtown swarming with homeless individuals either. It's in the best interest to offer services. And do we really need the state turning into a nanny state so that certain ambitions can be served? So I just think that, you know, I think the state should step in, and I think that.
Well, and I don't know how much study was done on beyond Indy, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Evansville, Muncie. The smaller you go, do you have a homelessness problem, really? And because we certainly don't have the facilities, and we probably have more than most.
Yeah. Which is why the urban legend has sprung up. Oh, we've got such great services that they're sending their homeless here. But in fact, a city official tells me, no, that is not the truth. Keep going, Mike. You were saying something.
Well, that goes to the, I don't know that we ever did it, but that we used to have a saying called justice by Greyhound.
Oh. I know. I've heard.
It's probably urban legend, but there are times on this, I just say, if I was homeless, would I pick Indiana with its crappy weather to be homeless? I would think I would try to figure out a way to get down to South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Florida, somewhere that is relatively warm, that you're not going to be subject to the kind of weather that can and does kill you.
See, that's why I think that most of these people are, you know, fairly local, because, and they maybe do have families, but because it's so brutal. I mean, look at the winter we just had. It was terrible, and all the snow too. These people are sleeping in the snow, or
Right.
it's just.
Which I think kind of supports your, do some of them have connections that they can, when it's really bad, call on help?
Well, you would know that better than I would.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple of people that hang out around here or wander into our building, or if you belong to a downtown church, we had a guy that was kind of camping out in a little covered alcove for one of our entrances that wasn't used very much. But the people who were across the street didn't like it. And he was the type that got very much in your face. And I mean, he came into a service, in the middle of a service, and myself and a retired cop had to kind of escort.
Is this at your church?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is a downtown church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful church. It does have alcoves. Actually, all of them down there on Berry Street do.
Yep.
And
that guy then hung around down here. I mean, we all knew him.
Yeah.
But it's just really sad. He clearly has mental health issues, but he's the type that scares people because he'll get up and yell in their faces and stuff. I don't know that he's ever hit anybody. I don't believe we've ever charged them, but he has done things. I mean, a woman who was putting mail in a mailbox, and he came over and pushed the mailbox over. So I mean, and those are the kind of behaviors that, as a public official, as law enforcement, those are real quality of life issues, and you want to protect your community. I mean, we've had people down here that I'll hear suddenly yelling going on. Now, sometimes it's legit. We had a guy crash his bicycle yesterday afternoon, and ambulance and stuff were here. But sometimes it's just a guy sitting there talking to himself, yelling at whatever he's seeing, because it's not what you're seeing. But it does, I think, disturb people. And if I was, again, running a business down here, I wouldn't want my customers or my employees subject to that kind of potential harassment, because they don't know that he's harmless.
Right, unless you've just gotten used to this person and you're like, oh, that's so-and-so,
But those are the kind of things that we hear stories of people in New York or Chicago that walk with their head down, never making eye contact with somebody else, because they don't know if the person's crazier than a loon, and they don't want to face that.
I know.
They'd much rather be in good old Kendallville or Auburn or Fort Wayne, where, hey, Joe, and
which those two towns, I'm sure they do have a few homeless. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they have somebody. I wish we could go on for this for weeks and weeks, but of course we're not. We have covered this bill about as much as I know, and that I have. I will say that in did I already say Albuquerque? Their jail population, not prison, did skyrocket once they criminalized homelessness. So it's something to consider. And, everybody's going to have to report back to the state. So I think that adds red tape. So I would like to see it tweaked a little bit. And I don't think they're going to be able to collect any $500 from anybody. So if you would like to have...
I don't think it's going to be a revenue booster, no.
No, I don't think so. No. So unless you have something else to say, I was going to sign off today. I don't have a rant. I know that's disappointing. But
I had a couple, so I'm good.
If you ever want to have a rant, Mike, you're welcome to it. But anyway, so you can hear this podcast on Spotify or Apple. You can look at it on our website on YouTube, www.theprobablecause.com, or on our Facebook page, of course. We post those too. We've got some more coming up. And so for now, I would just think that me and Mike, we could say goodbye.
Goodbye.
This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over. Charged me with possession after I rolled down the window. Now that's skunk. Indians a trick when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throw in the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Hell, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should have known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey on my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. Street crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated, this knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild and hit her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable when I was young. Caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you cry.
Whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.